morning. Hello, everybody. It's true. Good morning. We've danced the whole night through. Good morning, my darling, to you. Secret Beyonce started it. Sorry. Couldn't help myself. Oh, no. Someone remind me to order college. Oh, no. We're going to Costco tomorrow, right?
This is what we talked about.
Okay, then I don't have to order it online because it's almost out, but we're going to Costco, so I can buy more. Yay! Yay, Costco! Yay, collagen powder to make our nails and hair and everything grow better. I couldn't remember if there was no Book of and no slime tradition. No, just no slime. No slime later because we're going out to dinner with some friends. I have friends from New York who are not around for very much longer in this state, and I wanted to make sure to see them at least one more time. That is the sun. I do have sun. Do you not have sun? You're so close. You're like literally 20 minutes from here. How do you not have sun? Morning, Cindy. We're at the train hall. So oh no, Liz, we'll miss you. But I love that you loved Merrily. That made me so happy to see. How rude, Becca. How rude. How rude. Hey, Grace. Good morning. Guess what today is, you guys? Today is Land of Stories Book 6 Day. We're starting Land of Stories Book 6 today. I agree, Liz. It was. I 100% agree. Literally top 10 ever. 10 out of 10. Would recommend, obviously, as you can see, because I recommended it to you. Merrily We Roll Along. She and her husband were celebrating their anniversary this past weekend and the last couple of days. And they went into the city and they saw that show that I was telling you about. Yeah, and she loved it. I know. That's what I said. If Lindsay Mendez doesn't win the Tony for that, hey, Tiffany, I am a published author. Yay. Yeah, I agree, Juliet. No, I think you got it right. I spent all last night online shopping for clothes I hope will show up for beauty. Oh, will you send us pictures, Cindy? Please send photos of whatever you're going to wear to Beetlejuice. 10 out of 10 would also recommend Beetlejuice. My meeting just ended and didn't... Yay, Amanda! We're starting Land of Stories today. Very exciting. If anyone's new here, I wrote a book. It's called The Prince of Oregon. You can get it all the places. They did not take away my strike. They said violation stands. Yep. Yep, for not properly promoting my own book.
What does that mean?
It means that they think that I didn't talk about enough in that live to have it pinned, so I didn't pin it today because I don't want to deal with it. Kyle wants to come to book club today, but had to go to 11. Oh no, wait, I didn't know Kyle also did the same thing. Wait, explain. What kind of sciencey thing does Kyle do? I can't believe I've not known this all this time. You found... Oh, that's amazing, Cindy. I cannot wait to see them. Very excited. He does environmental chemistry for the government. Of course he does. Of course he does. Kyle does environmental chemistry for the government. Of course he does. Grace is a plant scientist, and Kyle does environmental chemistry. Of course you do. Huh? Kyle is Grace's boyfriend. Yep, it tracks. It tracks. It tracks like water. Oh, wait, you know what? I think I did know that, Grace, because that is what one of my friends does, and it's similar to what my uncle does, so I feel like I actually did know that. Both I have a friend here in Orange County, actually, and my uncle, who is retired now, they both work for either the government or like a contractor for it or whatever, and they do the same kind of thing. So I think I actually remember a long time ago you telling me that about Kyle. So I think I'm not, it's not as far from my mind as I thought. Do you need the milk? There you go. A state laboratory. Dun dun dun. There's a fun TikToker that looks like you, but she's very mean to her kids. Well, I have great news. It's not me because I don't have kids, so it couldn't be me. I'm sorry that she's mean to her kids, though, and that's terrible, but I'm glad it's not me. I don't have any children. I only have... Yes, it is an odd choice to film. I would be nice to kids if I had them, but I only have nieces and nephews, and I am very nice to them. I treat my nieces and nephews like queens and kings, and
It's true.
it's true. Maybe too well, actually, for being honest. Maybe too well. I spoil them rotten. It's true, but that's my prerogative as everybody's favorite aunt. Literally, my prerogative. Right?
It's the prerogative.
The way Ellie just tackled me because she... See, exactly. See? Becca's daughter just heard me and came and jumped in her lap. See? This is not a problem here. Have we set a date for the wedding? Oh, goodness gracious, no. We're not even close to that yet. No. We are still figuring everything out. We'll figure it all out. Yes, I am virtual aunt to all the kiddos. It is true. And I spoil all of them. All right. Did we ever figure out what Emma was talking about yesterday, Julia? Did you ever figure out what she was talking about? Because I, despite being a very big Taylor Swift fan, have no idea what she was talking about. I watched that video and I was like, she's adorable, she's hilarious. No clue what she's talking about. Now she's covering her face. Oh no, Ellie, sweet pea, don't be embarrassed. You're wonderful. We love you. We still don't know what she's talking about. Okay, cool. Well, she's cute. I mean, at least that's good, right? I have no idea, but it's fun. Yeah, no, it's definitely fun and cute. Amanda, I think it might just be something that kids were sharing or whatever, and it might not actually have anything to do with anything that we're aware of. I mean, yeah, Becca, that's fair. All right. Well, welcome everybody to another rousing day of book club. In case you didn't know, I wrote a book. It looks like this. You can get it all the places. It's called The Prince of Orkin. It's a fun, fluffy read, kind of like watching a Netflix romance movie, rom-com. I hope you love it. My first copies are supposed to arrive today, so the first set of copies ordered from me will mail out today. Yay, very exciting. Or, well, depending on what time. If they arrive before the post office closes, they will mail out today. I will pack them up and I will send them to you all. Hopefully more will end up soon. Next time you should just... Yeah, seriously, Becca. But today, we are starting The Land of Stories Book 6. I have mixed feelings about this because I will be sad when it's over, but I'm so thrilled that it happened. I'm so glad we found this series last year, and I can't wait to see what happens in this book, but I will be sad that the series is coming to an end. 10 out of 10 for Chris Coffer always. We'll never regret finding this, but it is time for us to smoothie dance, I believe.
Yeah. All right.
No, it's okay.
We can kind of talk one sec.
No, you're fine. No stress. How's everyone doing before we smoothie dance? Is everyone ready to dance? What dance move will you be doing for the smoothie today?
Ready?
I am ready. You know what's weird about that, Amanda and Becca? Why is it so disparate time-wise, you know?
What is what?
School breaks.
They're based on arbitrary events.
Yeah. No, but I mean, like, why does one school have their winter break right now and one has it in 2 weeks? You know what I mean?
Oh. Probably just like momentum from like long ago when breaks were more season like weather based.
Yeah. This is a great question. Yes, smoothie's done. Would Helen be able to read my book? Helen is a little on the young side for it, probably. There's nothing really bad in it. There's only just like a couple of curse words, which would, or what pushes it into a PG-13. That being said, I think it probably isn't going to hurt any kids as long as they're not totally mortified by a couple of curse words. For travel in popular areas, okay, I see. All right, are we totally honest? For some reason, I thought they meant your mom. I did at first too, Grace, and then I remembered her daughter's name is Helen. She has one daughter named Helen and one named Autumn, and my mom's name is Helen, and my friend's name is Autumn, so it's always crazy and funny. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Look at this beautiful smoothie. Hey, Anya, how are you? All right. Are we ready to read Land of Stories, Book 6? It is time. Whoa, the front of it is a little flap and it says, "Welcome to the Big Apple." And it's New York City. Oh yeah, remember? Okay, so we were just getting out of one of Connor's stories in the last one, and I think that they are headed to New York. So that is going to be fun for a lot of us. Hold on, I'm trying to take away that thing. All right, so this is the recap, or the blurb. Alex and Connor's biggest fear has come true. The Land of Stories fairy tale characters, both hero and villains, are no longer confined to their world. Connor doesn't think the situation could get any worse, that is, until Alex goes missing. While mayhem brews in the Big Apple, Connor and his friends will have to fight the biggest battle yet, but without Alex by his side. All right. To Rob, Alla, Avina, the Land of Stories would never have happened without your guidance, passion, and grammar lessons. And to the readers across the world, I'll cherish the adventures we've shared for the rest of my life. Thanks for being my happily ever after. Let's never grow up together. That's a very cute dedication. Quote, "If you want a happy ending, that depends, of course, on where you stop your story." Orson Welles. Prologue. A birthday celebration. Bookworm Paradise had never been so crowded. Over 1,000 guests were cramped inside the bookstore's event space until there were no more open chairs and no standing room left. A small stage was flooded with light and set 2 chairs and 2 microphones for the evening's program. It was difficult to see over the row of journalists and photographers crouching around the front of the stage, but the attendees were assured that the press would only be there for the first few minutes of the event. The multi-generational crowd had come to the bookstore to see their favorite author in the flesh. The guests fidgeted as they stood and squirmed in their seats as they anxiously waited for him to make his first public appearance in years. Not only were they there to celebrate the writer's 5-decade-long career, but the event was also marking a very special day in the author's life. A colorful banner painted by students from a local elementary school hung above the stage that said, "Happy 80th birthday, Mr. Bailey." Just as the bookstore promised, at 8 o'clock, a sharp man in a chic suit stepped on stage and the evening's festivities began. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Bookworm Paradise," the man said into the microphone. "I'm Gregory Quinn from the New York Times Book Review, and I couldn't be more honored to be moderating tonight's event. We're all here to celebrate a man who's made the world a much more magical place, thanks to over 100 published works of children's fiction." The crowd cheered at the mention of Mr. Bailey's accomplished career. The author's books could be found in the audience as guests held their favorite titles close to their heart.
As I look around the room, I'm very pleased to see a diverse group of people, Mr. Quinn continued. Mr. Bailey has always said his greatest accomplishment isn't the number of books he's written or the number of copies he's sold, but the rich diversity of his readership. And I can't think of a better testament to his work than knowing it's enjoyed by families around the world. Many people in the audience placed their hands over their chest as they remembered the joy the author had brought them over the years. Some even became teary-eyed, recalling what an impact Mr. Bailey's stories had on their young lives. Luckily, they'd found his work when they needed a good story the most. It's hard to find someone who doesn't smile at the mention of his name, Mr. Quinn went on. Mr. Bailey filled our childhoods with adventure and suspense. His characters taught us the difference between right and wrong, and his stories showed us that the imagination is the most powerful weapon in the world. You know someone is special when the whole world considers them family. So now, let's remind him just how special he is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Connor Jonathan Bailey. The seated guests leapt to their feet, and the event space filled with thunderous applause. The photographers raised their cameras and covered the stage in quick, pulsating flashes. An adorable and skinny man slowly made his way onto the stage and waved at the excited audience. He had big eyes the color of the sky and messy white hair that sat on top of his head like a fluffy cloud. He wore thick glasses, bright blue suspenders, and neon red sneakers. From the way he dressed and the mischievous twinkle in his eye, it was clear that Mr. Bailey was just as colorful as the characters in his books. Mr. Quinn tried to help the author to his seat, but the old man waved off the attempt, insisting that he didn't need assistance. Even after Mr. Bailey sat down, the crowd continued to shower him with their affectionate applause. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," Mr. Bailey said into the microphone. "You're too kind, but let's get on. It's probably best you stop clapping so we can get on with the show. I'm 80 years old. Time is of the essence." The crowd laughed and took their seats, each sitting a little more on the edge than before. "Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us, Mr. Bailey," Mr. Quinn said. "Well, I'm delighted to have the opportunity," the author said. "And thank you, Mr. Quinn, for such a lovely introduction. I didn't realize you were talking about me until I heard my full name. After all those compliments, I was afraid the store had booked the wrong Mr. Bailey." "The praise was all for you, sir," the moderator assured him. "First things first, happy birthday. It's such a privilege to celebrate this milestone with you." "Well, you've got to dig deep to find dirt older than me," Mr. Bailey joked. "It's funny, when I was young, there was nothing I looked forward to more than my birthday. Nowadays, with every passing year, I feel more and more like an inspired can of beans that God forgot to toss out." "I don't believe that for a second," Mr. Quinn said. "Every time I hear your name mentioned, it's always followed with a comment about your impressive stamina. Do you have any secrets for staying in shape or how you keep up your energy?" As you get older, it's important to select the shape you most identify with, and as you can see, I've chosen a squash," Mr. Bailey teased. "When it comes to maintaining good energy level, I simply make the most out of the 4 hours of the day I'm awake." A cheeky grin spread across the author's face, and the audience roared with laughter. They were pleased to hear him speak in the same trademark wit he wrote with. "We're also joined tonight by Mr. Bailey's family," Mr. Quinn said, and gestured to the people sitting in the front row. "Thank you for sharing your father and grandfather with us. Mr. Bailey, would you like to introduce your children and grandchildren?" "I'd be happy to," Mr. Bailey said. "That's my older daughter Elizabeth and her husband Ben, and their daughter Charlie. Next we have my son Matthew and his husband Henry and their boys, Aiden and Grayson. Oh. Last but certainly not least, my daughter Carrie and her husband Scott and their children, Brighton, Sammy, and Levi. As you can see, they're all adopted, a bunch that's good looking, so good looking that they couldn't possibly share my DNA." The audience chuckled and gave the author's family a warm round of applause, forcing them to stand and wave bashfully. "We were all very saddened to hear of your wife's passing earlier this year," Mr. Quinn said. As most of our audience know, Mr. Bailey's wife, Brianne Campbell Bailey, was also an accomplished writer and served as a United States Senator for 24 years until her retirement. "Would you believe that we were middle school sweethearts?" Mr. Bailey said with a smile. "As far as I'm concerned, she was the first and I was the first and only mistake she ever made." "And how long were you married?" Mr. Quinn asked. 52 years, Mr. Bailey said. "She insisted on finishing her master's degree before marriage and publishing her 5th book before we started a family." "I'm not surprised," Mr. Quinn said. "The late senator was a major advocate for women's rights." "Yes, but I must clarify, Bree was never late for anything," the author said with a laugh. "She did absolutely everything on her own time, and her death was no exception. But in my family, we don't say die or passed away. We say returned to magic. It suits her much better. Before she returned to magic, my wife hid thousands of notes in our home for me to find after she was gone. Not a day goes by that I don't discover a post-it reminding me to take my medicine or eat my breakfast." "Magic indeed," Mr. Quinn said. "You were born and raised in Willowcrest, California, is that correct?" "That's right," Mr. Bailey said with a nod. "And what a different world it was. Paper came from trees, cars ran on gasoline, caffeine was legal, and practically the Dark Ages." "Can you remember the first person who inspired you to write?" the moderator asked. It was my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Peters," the author said. "At first, we didn't see eye to eye. She thought her classroom was a place for education, and I thought it was a great place for naps. A year later, she became the principal of the middle school and read some short stories I had written for my English class. Mrs. Peters saw potential in my writing, planted the seeds in my head. I've always been grateful to her, and I dedicated one of my books to her, but I can't recall which one." It's Fairy Taletopia 4, The Literary Journey, I shouted an excited girl in the back row. "Ah, yes, that is the one," Mr. Bailey said and scratched his head. "You'll have to be patient with me. My memory's been on vacation since my early 70s. These days I'll pick up a book and read the whole thing without realizing I wrote it." Speaking of which, let's talk about your remarkable writing career," Mr. Quinn said. "As I said before, you've published more than 100 books over the course of 5 decades, and among those are the Sarbordia Sagas, the Adventures of Blimp Boy Mysteries, the Galaxy Queen Chronicles, the Zibling graphic novels, and most notably, the Fairy Taletopia series." "It is, Shelley." The crowd cheered the loudest at the mention of Mr. Bailey's fantasy series, Fairy Taletopia. The author's 6-book franchise was the most successful and acclaimed publication of his career. Sounds familiar. The series had been translated into 50 languages and was sold in over 100 countries, and it helped improve children's literacy around the world. The Fairy Taletopia books had also been adapted into several major motion pictures, a dozen television shows, and countless items of tacky merchandise. Although the majority of your work has been bestsellers and critical hits, you're most known for writing Fairy Taletopia, Mr. Quinn said. What's the special ingredient that makes the series so beloved? Oh, well, that's an easy answer. It was written by a child, Mr. Bailey confessed. Not many people know this, but I finished the first draft of Fairy Taletopia, The Wishing Charm, when I was about 13 years old. I was very embarrassed about writing, so I kept it a secret. I didn't even show it to my family. Later in my 20s, I did a few mild literary successes and came across an old dusty manuscript in my mother's attic and brushed it off, fixed a couple typos, and had it published. Had I known what a hit would be, I would have pursued it much sooner. Oh, interesting, Mr. Quinn said. So you're saying the series is successful with children because it was conceived by one? Precisely, Mr. Bailey said. Children will always be drawn to stories written in their own language, and as children's authors, it's our job to never lose touch with that language. Well, you've had plenty of opportunities to write for adults, but you've always stayed in the realm of middle grade. Why do you enjoy writing for children? I suppose I just like children more than I like adults, the author said with a shameless shrug. No matter how much the world evolves, the children of the world will never change. Every child is born with the same need for love, respect, and understanding. They're unified by the same fears, compassions, and convictions. They're tormented by an endless curiosity, a thirst for knowledge, and a desire for adventure. The greatest tragedy in life is how soon children get robbed of these qualities. We could accomplish great things if we held on to such a fresh point of view. Think about how wonderful this world would be if we all saw it through the eyes of a child. What would your advice be for aspiring authors? Mr. Quinn asked. This was a very important question to the author. He went silent for a moment while he thought of a worthy answer. Always let the world inspire and influence you, but never let it discourage you. In fact, the more the world discourages you, the more it needs you. As writers, we have the profound privilege and responsibility to create a new world when the current one takes a turn for the worst. Storytellers are much more than entertainers. We're the shepherds of ideology and the street pavers of progress and scientists of the soul. If it weren't for people like us who imagine a better world and are brave enough to question and stand up to the authorities that suppress them, well, we'd still be living in the dark ages I was born into. It became so quiet that the crowd could hear the ticking of a clock. At first, the author was afraid he'd said something to upset the audience, but once they had a few seconds to process his words, the event space erupted into another thunderous round of applause. I'm afraid to follow that answer with another question, so why don't we open the questions to our audience members? Mr. Quinn proposed. Nearly all the hands in the room shot up at once. Mr. Bailey chuckled at the sight, tickled by how many people wanted to ask a question of an old geezer like him. Well, let's start with the woman in the brown shirt, Mr. Quinn said. The Starboardia series is much darker than most of your work, especially the history about American slavery. Were you worried that that might be too much for your younger audience? Not once, Mr. Bailey said. I will never sugarcoat history so that certain people sleep better at night. The more we shed light on the problems of the world, the past and present, the easier it will be to fix them. Now let's go to the boy in the front row, Mr. Quinn said. How many of your characters are based on yourself? All of them, especially the villains, Mr. Bailey said with a wink. Now we'll go to the young man in the middle, Mr. Quinn said. And what inspired you to write the Fairy Taletopia series? A mischievous twinkle in the author's eye grew so bright it basically shined like a searchlight. Would you believe me if I told you it was all autobiographical? He said. The crowd giggled and Mr. Bailey's children collectively sighed at their father's remark. Not this again. However, Mr. Bailey's twinkle never faded. He looked around the room as if he was disappointed that the audience wasn't taking the answer as seriously as the others. It's true, he said with conviction. This world is full of magic if you choose to see it, but it's a choice I can't make for you. The comment inspired a little girl in the third row to stand on her seat and wave her hand energetically in the air. Whatever her question was, she was more than desperate to ask. Yes, the young lady wearing pigtails, Mr. Quinn said. Hello, Mr. Bailey, she said. My name is Annie, and I love your books. I've read all 6 Fairy Taletopia books a dozen times. Well, I appreciate that more than words can describe, the author said. What's your question? Well, it has to do with what you just said about Fairy Taletopia being true, she said. Everyone knows Fairy Taletopia is about a pair of twins who travel into the fairy tale world, but I bet a lot of people don't know that you're a twin yourself. I looked you up online and I saw that you have a sister named Alex, so I assume you based Alec and Connie Baxter from Fairy Taletopia on you and your sister. The question took Mr. Bailey off guard. His readers were usually so invested in the worlds he wrote about they rarely asked him questions about his personal life, especially his family. That's both creepy and correct, Annie, Mr. Bailey said. I'd say you have what it takes to be a private investigator. That's not my question, the girl said. According to my research, Alex Bailey attended school in Willow Crest until the 7th grade, but then she vanishes from all public records. I've looked everywhere, but I cannot find a single document about where she went after that and what became of her. So I guess my question's less about the books and more about your sister. Whatever happened to Alex? The world-renowned author went dead silent, and the twinkle did fade from his eye. He was shocked, not because of the question, but because he couldn't remember the answer. He searched every corner of his patchy memory, but he couldn't recall where his sister was or the last time that he had spoken to her. The only memories coming to mind were from when Alex was a teenager, but he refused to believe that was the last time he had seen her. He was certain he had some communication with Alex since then. She couldn't have just disappeared, as the girl in pigtails claimed, or could she? Mr. Bailey mumbled as he tried to focus. It was obvious something was wrong, and the crowd began to shift in their seats. When the author realized his audience was growing uncomfortable, he laughed at their reaction like he was only playing a joke on them. "Oh, well, it's a simple answer," he said. "What happened to Connie at the end of Fairy Taletopia?" He phrased the question like he was playing a trivia game with the young girl, but secretly the author couldn't remember the conclusion of his beloved series either. Trying to recall the whereabouts of his sister made him realize how much information was missing from his memory. "She and Alec both lived happily ever after," Annie said. "Did they?" the author asked. "I mean, of course they did." "Well, that's your answer." "But Mr. Bailey, well, this has been a wonderful evening, but I have to cut it short," the author said. I'd love to stay and answer all your questions, but my 4 hours of consciousness are almost up." The author yawned and stretched like he was tired, but it wasn't a convincing performance. In truth, the mental void had terrified him, and he didn't know how much longer he could keep his fear from surfacing. Mr. Bailey always made jokes about his fading memory, but it wasn't until tonight that he realized it wasn't a laughing matter. Later that evening, once his children had dropped him off at home and made sure he was settled, Mr. Bailey searched his house for any clues he could find leading to his sister's location, but he found nothing. Not even a photograph. His children already treated him like a toddler, so he was afraid to ask one of them what had happened to her. For peace of mind, he had to find her on his own. The author could envision every detail of his sister's face, her pale skin, her rosy cheeks, her pale blue eyes, the freckles on the bridge of her nose, and her long strawberry blonde hair were instantly accessible every time he closed his eyes and thought of her. However, this was how Alex had looked in her youth. She most certainly wouldn't have been she would have been an old woman by now, so why couldn't he picture it? "Oh, Alex, where did you go?" he said to himself. Mr. Bailey knew only one thing could jumpstart his memory. He locked himself in his study and searched his bookshelves until he found copies of the Fairy Taletopia series. And just as he had told the audience at the bookstore, all 6 books were based on true events he and his sister had experienced when they were much younger. If he couldn't recall the information on his own, perhaps one of his stories would trigger the memories for him. Mr. Bailey eagerly pulled the first Fairy Taletopia off the shelf, but remembering the events that inspired each book wasn't as easy as he thought it would be. "Think, old man, think," he said. "Fairy Taletopia, the wishing charm, was about our first trip into the fairy tale world. We were collecting something. There were things we needed to get back home. Oh, I know, the wishing spell. Our dad's journal helped us navigate and find the item. We were chased by the big bad wolf pack and barely survived our encounter with the evil queen. That's also the year we met Froggy and Red and Jack and Goldilocks." The old man was so excited to retrieve these memories that he jumped into the air and his back cracked, reminding him he was too old to be doing such movements. He put the first books in the series aside and moved on to the sequel, Fairy Taletopia 2, Evil Fairy's Revenge, he read. What on earth was that one about? Wait, that was the year the Enchantress returned. We all flew all over the fairy tale world in a flying trip called the Granny. Alex defeated the Enchantress by taking away her pride. Boy, was she brilliant for doing that. That's the same year we met Mother Goose and Mom married Bob. The second remembrance gave him a boost of confidence, and he eagerly moved on to the third book in the series, Fairy Taletopia 3, The Long Lost Army. He read, that must be based on the Grand Armée that tried conquering the fairy tale world. The soldiers were trapped in the portal for over 200 years, thanks to Mother Goose and the Brothers Grimm. Our uncle joined them and found that dragon egg, and he raised the beast, and our grandmother slayed it right before she returned to magic. Wow. I can't believe our mother let us out of the house after that one. As he moved on to the fourth and fifth books, the memories began to flow so freely that he had trouble keeping up with them. It was like a tropical rainstorm had formed in the middle of a terrible drought. Fairy Taletopia 4, The Literary Journey, was when Alex and I chased Uncle Lloyd through the worlds of classic literature. We would have to stop him sooner if he hadn't, would have stopped him sooner if he hadn't separated us into Camelot and Robin Hood. Fairy Tale-topia 5, A Storyteller's Quest, was when we traveled into my short stories, and we accidentally went inside Bree's writing, and our Uncle Lloyd was trapped inside the cemetery of the undead. We rushed back to the hospital to tell Alex what had happened. When we arrived, she was gone. The author pulled the 6th and final book in his series off his shelf and stared down at the cover. Fairy Tale-topia 6, The Great New York Adventure, he read. Unfortunately, the title didn't trigger a memory like the rest of the books had. Mr. Bailey tried as hard as he could to remember what the book was about and the events that had inspired it, but he drew a blank at every turn. The answer might have escaped him completely, but he knew the information he craved was somewhere inside the book. Even if he had misled his readers to a false happy ending, he was certain he could read between the lines and discover the truth. So the beloved children's book author took a deep breath, opened his own book to the very first page, and began reading, hoping with all his heart the story would remind him where his sister had gone all those years ago. Don't worry, Becca, I'll upload it right away. That was amazing. Amazing. He's so good, you guys. I mean, would that we all had that kind of skill. Like, just... I promise to put this up before the end of today. As soon as the live processes, I will put this up for you guys because nobody can miss this before tomorrow. I will not fail you in this one. It's too good. It was very difficult not to cry reading that. That was extremely well done. Wow. We're off to a great start as we expected from him. I'm real sad that this is the end of this series. That's okay, Shelly. I'll upload it right away so you're back on track before Saturday. So good. Yeah. It's amazing. Wow. I know, me too, Nissa. I know. Did you see me? I was barely keeping it together. Woo! I know. The good news, you guys, is that he has a whole nother series, right? So like this one might be over, but we can read his other series, right? This isn't it. This isn't like his last book. It's just the last book in this series. So we've got more. Oh my God, if we could get Chris Coffer to come talk to our book club, you can't. No, seriously, Nessa, it's hard. I'm gonna go get going on things because I've got a lot of stuff to do before I go out to dinner with some friends tonight, including if you're a Patreon person, there's gonna be a lot of posts about, she does? Okay, that's good to know, Cindy. There's gonna be a lot of posts today about slime over there, tons, because I have a lot to show you guys. There's gonna be more videos about new slimes today, and then all that stuff. My first round of books is supposed to deliver sometime today. If they deliver today, I'll pack them up and immediately mail them out with the roll for slimes from last night. Yes, everyone, please trade your stuff. Enjoy it. It's going to be great. Amanda and a couple others have, he has written so many books. We're going to read all of them, Grace. Don't get it twisted, you guys. We're reading everything this man ever writes. Chris Coffer could literally write a phone book and I'd read it at this point. I am dedicated. He has me for life. He's so good. So good. If anyone, yes, well, actually, Julia, it's actually going to be even better than that for grab bags because I ran out of 4-ounce jars. So grab bags can also trade for a 6-ounce or 2 3-ounces, depending on your choice. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, essentially. 6-ounce or 2 3-ounces is how it's going to go. So that's cool. Yeah, it's just amazing. What a great book. Anyway, if you are new here and you don't know, I spelled your last name wrong in the acknowledgements. Oh my gosh, Cindy, will you message me a reminder because I can fix it before the next run. Like it prints every time, so I can update it. Because it's self-published. I can update it live. What did I do wrong? Yes, Lucky Charm Slime is coming today. Oh my God, have I done that so many times to you? How many times have I done that to you? There's no E. That's both hysterical and awful all at the same time. The good news is, you know what, Cindy? You know what I'll do? I will not ship yours until I get a new print where it's fixed. I will save yours for a new print where it's fixed. Oh, there's like 4 typos in here. It's wild. Or, you know, maybe Cindy, I'll just send you 2 copies. Who knows? I should send you both so you have both versions. But anyway, I am going to go and get everything done because it's a busy, busy day, but I will see you all later. I hope you all have a great day. Enjoy everything. If you are reading a version of the book that you already have, I would love to hear everything about it. Land of Stories. I promise to put this up as soon as it processes. It usually takes the lives about an hour or 2 to process, and then I can download it and re-upload it. So see you all later. Bye, guys.